Welcome to this fourth session of the ACM Hangout series hosted by Arts Council Malta. The series is Arts Council Malta's regular virtual platform for networking and knowledge sharing. This is our fourth session out of 5, which is focusing on the beneficiaries of the investment in cultural organizations. Together, we are exploring a range of themes with representatives from these organizations, as well as different key speakers who are joining us throughout the sessions. The theme for today's session is teaming up, seeking the right partners and engaging in ideal collaborations. Here is the full brief for the session. What are the benefits of engaging in co-productions, partnerships, and collaborations? How do we do that as an arts organization? Through examples and best practices, the session will explore the notion of partnerships and co-productions, as well as the benefits and challenges of the collaborations. So, as I said, today we're going to have 3 speakers from the ICO program, and we're also going to have 2 key speakers who are joining us and are going to provide us with their perspectives, with their, and they will share their knowledge about the subject as well as their experience. Then, at the end of the session, our rapporteur, Stephanie Bonnici, will be giving a quick roundup of what we discussed during the session. In the meantime, I encourage you to send us any comments, questions through either the Facebook chat or else via Zoom, where we have our other ICO beneficiaries following the session through there. Also, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded. So, we rather start focusing on today's subject, and I would now like to give the floor to Adrian Debattista, who is the Head of Strategy at Arts Council Malta, for his introduction. Adrian?
Thank you, Elaine, for the introduction. Today we're going to speak about collaborations. Collaborations in arts organizations are something which is quite intrinsic within the ethos of arts organizations, given that arts at the very basic level are based on ideas, and ideas are based on different perspectives. Thus, having a diverse range of ideas might lead to a better creative project. So it is understandable that collaborations have been a major part of how our arts organizations operate. And how collaborations take place makes a big difference on whether they are successful or not, because success can look different to different organizations. And some organizations and individuals, of course, may feel that there might have been an unequal share of the success from this specific collaboration. As we will see today, we'll see how the benefits of collaborations or the perceived benefits may lead to different forms of collaborations, and we'll see the different motivations to collaborate, because it might be because of financial reasons, it might be because of reputational reasons, it might be because of simply a tradition as well. Some organizations might have been working together for a while, thus it may lead to them thinking that they should automatically collaborate, when that might not always be the case, as we could see later. So the model of collaboration determines the why and the how of collaboration. Thus, in the end, a collaboration is successful only by the input that is provided by the organizations, but which should be kept in mind that the sum of the collaboration is greater than the parts that make it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. I think obviously this is the beginning of our conversation, no? As you were very careful in the choice of words. You said the perceived benefits, for example. We know you hinted at a process which is behind this collaboration, and which is not very obvious sometimes, because we think, yes, let's launch ourselves into the next collaboration, but it is a process, and I think that is what's kind of what you were referring to in good. So we will have the time to go into the details. We'll have the time also to share this with our beneficiaries and also with our key speakers. And also, if you have any remarks at all which you would like to share with us and discuss them later on during the session, please feel free to send them to us. So as I said, each session will be featuring a number of different organizations that benefited from the investment in cultural organizations, which is one of the schemes of Arts Council Malta. Today we are meeting representatives from Moveo, Opening Doors, and Teatru Salesjan. This is a short video about the organizations.
Moveo is a professional contemporary dance company operating on a two-strand vision. We have our outreach and education program where we perform in schools, in old people's homes, and for many different parts of the community. We also have our professional dance strand where we create and perform contemporary productions both locally and overseas.
Teatru Salesjan huwa teatru għall-komunità fil-qalba ta' Taslima. Għal aktar minn 100 sena kien ċentrali fit-trawim artistiku ta' tfal u żgħażagħ. Il-programm ta' Teatru Salesjan jinkludi programm edukattiv kif ukoll varji performances varji għall-komunità kollha.
Opening Doors Art Association has been running for 11 years now, working with adults with learning disabilities or intellectual differences. We offer classes in music, dance and theatre at various levels. And we have a number of professional artists who work with us as artistic leaders and assistants.
We now employ 8 full-time dancers and work with many other professionals, and this is where the ICO fund from the Arts Council Malta has really been pivotal to the company. Thanks to this fund, we are able to keep full-time dancers working with us in order to be able to create professional work and take everything we do to the next level, both locally and internationally.
Grazzi għal Kunsill Malti tal-Arti u għal dan il-fond, Teatru Salesjan ser ikompli jinvesti fit-tim li jamministra t-teatru. Dan it-tim magħmul minn volontira u ħaddiema u permezz tagħhom ser inkomplu noffru programm artistiku varjat. B'hekk naċċertaw futur pożittiv għat-teatru kif ukoll inkomplu ninvestu fit-talent ta' dawk kollha li jissieħbu magħna u nkomplu nżidu fl-udjenza li nilqgħu fih dan it-teatru.
We're very fortunate to receive funding from a number of organisations to help us service this diversity organisation, including the Arts Council and the ICO funding that we've just received, which allows us to plan for the next 3 years, which is remarkable for us.
And on to our first speaker for today, who is Eckhard Thiemann. Eckhard is an independent curator, programmer, and arts manager specializing in contemporary Arab culture, dance, and international cultural programming and exchanges. He is artistic director of Shubak, London's largest festival of contemporary Arab culture, and he is also a programming associate for dance. Eckhard, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about collaborations, artistic collaborations in this case.
Hello, and thank you very much for your invitation. I hope you can hear me well. I'm really happy to talk about collaboration, since this is something that I feel I cannot actually imagine working without collaboration anymore, especially in culture and international dialogue. I want really to speak about one particular project that was part of Shubak. Shubak is London's largest festival of contemporary Arab culture. Shubak means window, and our strapline is a window on contemporary Arab culture. And we present the work of Arab artists to our audiences. We had over 60 events in over 30 venues across London, with artists from London and the UK, from Europe, and of course from across the Arab world. And our real aim is to position those artists as globally active, creative agents. So we work very much in a local, as well as in a European, and a regional, and an international and global network. The project I want to speak about is performances between the two shores, which was funded through Creative Europe with 6 full partners and 3 associate partners, and which took place from the autumn of 2018 until November 2019. And I think what this project did, it really helped us to address the key common question that all partners had, to generate new ideas, to meet this question and find answers for it, to deliver a project with real results for artists and for audiences, to give us more profile and exposure internationally, to share some knowledge and learning that takes us as an organization forward into the future, and to help us financially to get some funding. So these are, I think, all the benefits you could possibly want to have and dream of in a collaboration. And I really want to stress that I mentioned the financial contribution as the last. It is very important, but very often we think of collaboration predominantly in financial terms. But I think the generating ideas, addressing a common question, having a shared vision, and joining up in decision making, that's what makes a collaboration really rewarding. So what actually happened? The partners were Beaux-Arts in Brussels, a huge, very large art centers, multi-art from art center, the Weimar Theater Festival in Germany, a theater and music festival in a small mid-scale university town, Dancing on the Edge in Amsterdam, a festival that, like us, is specialized on culture and arts from the Middle East, the Naples Theatre Festival, an enormous theatre and music festival in the summer in Naples, us as Shubak, and our associate partners were Loop in Athens, a new artists development agency, the One Dance Week in Plovdiv. Plovdiv was the European City of Culture in 2019, and the DCAF Festival in Cairo, one of our regional partners. So very, very different organizations, from enormous national institutions like Beaux-Arts to very small festival like ours with 3 members of staff. But what really united us and combined us was the key question of how the presence of migration into Europe from Arab countries is affecting how we present culture, how we could reach migrant communities as audiences, and how we can generate more creativity from Arab artists who are based in Europe, and what they might have to say about the world we live in and Europe and our countries. So this was really the key question that we wanted to address, despite the fact that we were such different organizations. We came together, and this was really the second Creative Europe bid that we put in, and we devised a program that had 4 aspects. The first one was a direct commission by the artist Wael Ali, playwright and director, Syrian director based in France, in Lyon, to create a new theater work that could tour to all our 8 partners. And it would be created through residencies in at least 2 partners. So very amazing outcome, a new theater piece touring to at least 8 venues in 8 countries. The second aspect were to collectively select 15 artists from a younger generation to just come and visit us as partners, to get to know how we work, to see our venues, to meet our audiences, to learn more about cultural production across Europe in a country they haven't been familiar with. So we collectively selected a group of 15 artists, and 5 or 6 artists in different constellations went to at least 2 of us as partners. So the rule was no artist should go just to one location and no artist should go to all locations. So we mixed and matched them up in different ways. The third aspect was staff exchange and knowledge exchange. So we swapped staff members between us as organizations to learn how we work in our respective countries. Because although we think as Europe, sometimes as quite a homogeneous terrain, in effect, it's very, very different. And for instance, how we speak marketing-wise to our audiences in each country is very different. How we manage our budgets can be very different. How our audiences react is very different. So we had different placements. So for instance, we at Shubak, we hosted the programmer of the Naples Festival for a week, who just spent time with us to see how we work. And we had one of the programmers of the Decaf Festival in Cairo joined us for a month. So this was the project. And as I said, it led to an active tour. It led to young artists networking and experiencing new situations. And it led to a information and learning exchange. And of course, the funding from Creative Europe made it possible then for us to save on some of the costs. So we got the international tourists at a cheaper rate, if I want to put it bluntly, than if we had invited it completely alone. So in many ways, it's a real win-win situation. What it required, I think, is a real shared vision, is understanding that you want to find answers for the same question, and you might find different answers for the question, but you have a common question and passion that you want to pursue. I think the second important item is that we really shared values and aesthetics and an approach how to work with artists. We wanted to work very transparent, very egalitarian, very cooperative, and that requires a lot of trust between the partners. I think one aspect that was very successful was that particular elements of the project, each local partner had full autonomy for decision making on. So for instance, the commission for Wael Ali was produced by Les Banques Publiques in Marseille, one of our partners, and they really could control the touring and the production of this piece. The presence of the young artists in each city was governed by whatever was the most beneficial intervention and presence for those artists. So in Weimar, for instance, the festival did some schools workshops with them. In Naples, they mainly interacted with departments at the university. With us in London, we introduced them to other London cultural institutions with whom they should have contact with outside our festival context, and to take part in a number of debates, public debates that we had. And I think this balance between what is collectively agreed and what is locally, where there's local agency, is a really important factor to have in a good collaboration. And maybe for the last minute, just to say a couple of challenges. Every collaboration also has challenges. I think challenges you will often find is just communication, to be very, very regular in communication, understanding each other's language. And it's not just the physical language. Do we speak French or English or Italian? It's about how businesses and cultural producers discuss and work and operate. And this is very different across European countries. So having a very fine-tuned ear to that. I think the other challenge we really felt was how we spoke about the work and what we do to our external audiences was very different from country to country. It was quite difficult to arrive at a shared text or a marketing image, a photo that could work across all our festivals. Culture is marketed in very different ways in different European cities. So we had to find a common ground, or sometimes decide that each partner should be able to do their own version in order to reach the biggest audience. So those are just some reflections from me on the nature of collaboration. I'm really looking forward to hear some of the questions later on, but maybe to re-emphasize that a good collaboration has to start with a shared problem and a shared vision and a shared passion. The money will follow afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eckhard, for this very interesting case study, which highlights a number of points of values that actually make up a good collaboration, whatever the outcome is. I was just wondering whether, actually, how do you go about choosing the partners? Because you mentioned there's a level of trust, there's a level of communication which you need to get to. So there's a process, but I'd like kind of to explore the very beginning, the very start of this, of your collaboration. Maybe you can share your perspective, your experience about this.
Yes, it takes time to find the right partners, and a project of this size and scale, you cannot start, I think, from partners who have not in some ways worked before. So how we found each other is that some of these 8 organizations already had done previous collaborations. So I, for instance, knew the work of Dancing on the Edge and Les Banques Publiques very well, but I was much less familiar with the work of the Naples Festival or Beaux-Arts. But my colleagues at the Weimar Festival had done collaborations with the Naples festivals and with Les Banques Publiques. So we kind of recommended each other to each other, and we brought in partners that we felt could contribute to the collective. So I think to start a new collaboration, the first thing I would advise is look at people you know already who you've wanted to work with or you have worked with before, where you already have established some communication and then gradually expand it from there. I sometimes get calls, when there's a European call out from just in my email from an organization saying, we are seeking partners to do this really huge project. And I always think that's a very difficult starting point of start with people you know, people they know, and expand from there.
Excellent. Thanks, Eckhard, for that. We hope we'll get back to this discussion later on. In the meantime, I would like to introduce our second speaker, who is Dorian Mallia from Moveo. Dorian will be sharing, obviously, his views and experience in relation to artistic collaborations and partnerships so far. Dorian.
Hi. First of all, thank you. I think the core of Moveo is about partnership and collaborations. I would say from the very beginning, that was the main thing that made the company a success in a way, because acknowledging what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are during a long process of discovery when you're creating something or even creating the organization itself, is crucial to find the right partner or collaborator. I would say mine started from a very, let's call it friendship, intimate kind of perspective in a way. And that's when Diane and I started partnering in the work, in the organization. It takes a relationship for it to work out. So it's not just finding a person that you think that works. There's the communication in it. There's a relationship, you know, with everything, with the good and the bad. And trusting the person that when things, you know, get complicated, you can step up. You know? So there are a lot of levels of collaborations and partners. Through the years, we collaborated with a lot of people, with a lot of artists as well, and organizations. So I would see it as there are these two dynamics which are different. You have the artistic, so people who come in and share their knowledge and collaborate in that way. So it's important that for us, we're open for other people to come in and share that knowledge and try to experiment with that knowledge. And with organizations as well. So that's when funding comes in, that's when presenting work at theaters comes in. So it's very different in a way from the artistic to the managerial maybe, which are both extremely important for the work that we do. The collaboration happens as well, not just within the organization, and there's another level outside the organization that happens maybe that is not exactly in touch with the organization. So for example, when we went to San Miguel and we were giving movement workshops there, there was someone who was already collaborating with the school, Rosetta in this case, and she takes care of children with disabilities, and we communicated with her. She, because we're not expertise in that, we're expertise in movement, we needed the third collaboration, so to speak. So it expands further to what we do within the organization. I would say as well that when it comes to partnering with someone, as I said at the beginning, is recognizing what is missing within your organization. And trusting the person who comes in has the same vision. So exactly as, like, I think he pointed out most of the important things to have a great collaboration as well. I wouldn't say that all partnerships and collaborations work. There are some that don't work at all, and many times it's because of the communication. It's because the vision is different. It's because of the aesthetic is different. So it doesn't always work, which is fine. And it's learning from that, you know, because it's important. That's one of the times when you realize what maybe your strengths are or what you're missing. It's in those times when things even don't work. Mm-hmm. When we collaborate with artists, it's very interesting because usually we all have the same passion for the arts, but many times within the conversations and the workshops, you know, the brain starts going everywhere. Because as artists, like many people who don't work in a very linear manner, so that's when creating this language that is understood. And that's when the relationship comes back in again. So people that we work with a lot, we have a good history of years of working together. When it comes to composers, understanding the language of a musician is not the same as a dancer. We say, we want the music that makes you feel like this, and they come up with something completely different to what you have taught, because for them sad might mean that the notes are lower or whatever, and for you might mean something else. So creating this constant conversation so that you find the right balance when it comes to communication. When you collaborate with artists who maybe are not within the, let's call it the three disciplines, which is the theater, dance, and music. With makeup, we collaborated with Justin. His vision to the aesthetics is very different to what we see as dancers, maybe. Again, he managed to create a face with dancers, objects, and it's all the way how he sees things. But if you don't allow yourself to be open to these things, the collaboration won't work.
So in a way, it challenges your vision, right?
Definitely.
And kind of it helps you to move on in a way.
Definitely, definitely. And as long as the core is within the same vision, it works.
So pretty much like Eckhard was saying, that you need to kind of have the same vision, but then obviously there are different ways how to express it.
For sure, because if it's not challenged, it's gonna get stuck there, you know?
Yeah.
You need people to question you why you're doing this and how can you do it, and you know?
But what if it doesn't work? Because you said before, you mentioned this possibility that collaborations do not work. I think particularly on an artistic level, when things are not really within clear parameters, you know, you really go in and it's a leap in the dark. But many are quite scared of entering into these kind of even discussions because you do not know how this will go. So
of course.
What do you do then in such a small sector?
Yes. Well, I think with experience you learn how to communicate the activities, let's say, from before, so people know exactly what they're going to go into, rather than I have this idea, we just open Pandora's box and see where it goes. It can work, but from my experience, it didn't always work like that. So recognizing what the strengths are within the group of the collaborators, and you carry your weight within your strength. So when it comes to choosing, you choose those people who will bring something to the project. It could be another choreographer as well, but they have another way of working. But you know that, let's say I'm a choreographer and Francesca is a choreographer, but you know who's leading at the end of the day, the choreographer, or who's going to make it happen. If both of us think that we're going to make it happen, you know, because at the end of the day, each artist, they have their own vision.
Yeah.
Yes?
So even artistically, you're saying that there still needs to be clear parameters as to who is doing what and how for a collaboration to be effective.
Yes, of course, if like this doesn't happen when Diane and I are working together, because we've been working together for years now. So we already have that kind of embodied in us, you know. So yes, I think that is the relationship, I would say. Those people who come to work with us, it's not just work and go, you know, there's a relationship.
And throughout the years, did you kind of seek different partners because of these different needs?
Definitely, yes. Especially when it comes to dramaturgs, it's something that we feel within each project. There is, and usually it's the person who questions, you know, who challenges the the work. Even if it's a workshop, you know, you still, because sometimes you're so into it, you're so in love with the project or with the whole situation, you know, that you don't see beyond. Yep. So these people that come from outside, let's call, and collaborate are crucial.
Thank you. Thanks, Dorian. So I'd like to actually move on to our third speaker, who is Ilona Baldacchino from Opening Doors, because this very much links with your presentation, links with what Dorian was saying, in that the different collaborators throughout the years have kind of contributed to the growth of the organization of Opening Doors. But I'll leave these next 5 minutes up to you.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine, for today's invite. Just to start off. Okay, sorry. I will be further expanding on what Dorian said and what Eckhard mentioned as well, on how Opening Doors has collaborated in the past and is collaborating with different partners currently on a variety of projects and the experience of that. Just to give a little introduction, Opening Doors is an artistic organization which strives to provide artistic experiences for people with a learning disability within the creative and artistic sector. Before I go into the topic of today, I'll just give a little snippet of how Opening Doors is initiated. It developed through an EU-funded project, and through this EU-funded project, there were several persons who were interested in developing a group of artists with a learning disability, focusing on theatre specifically. From 2007, that took place, and there was project after project which enabled the group to grow. Then from 2011, we established ourselves as an organization. And this happened thanks to many collaborators who came along the way. So whether it was national agencies, funding bodies, artistic leaders that worked with us. I kind of reflected on I focused on the effective collaborations. I didn't really go into the negative side of the collaborations, but I think some of you did mention kind of the negative aspect of collaborations. But I kind of brought it down to these 5 points. Also, one links to the other, and there are types of collaboration and possibly effects of such collaborations. And the first one reflects on the growth, on the development, and the expansion. So Opening Doors was able to grow these past 12 years in its capacity to provide artistic services to a large number of members. Whereas we initiated with just a theatre group, we now have 6 different groups catering, two groups catering in dance, theatre, and music. And this was thanks to the supporting national agency Spazio Creativ, who really believed in our vision and ethos. And then funding bodies also supported our development in the program that we started to provide. Also, development reflects on the different artists, collaborators such as directors, artistic leaders who came in and worked with us and enabled our members to develop further their artistic skills, our artistic performances and quality of work also developed. And expansion, I reflect upon the issue that now we are able to reach more people. So we currently cater for around 45 members who attend our weekly sessions. Also adding to the expansion of the organization, I also will say that we do not have our own artistic premises, and therefore we rely on the support of a variety of collaborators. And namely, we have Alison White and Manuel Theatre who support our dance sessions, Spazio Creativ who host our theatre sessions, and we also work with an independent performing arts school who caters for our music sessions. The next point is very much linked with the previous point, and as Dorian mentioned, several collaborations then also enable and give the opportunity to share knowledge. So our expertise is in inclusive practices in the arts, and we had several agencies and theatre companies wanting our feedback on the best inclusive practices that we use, our approaches and methodologies that work for us. On the other hand, we also received several support when it came, for example, marketing and publishing of our work and promoting our work. We did receive several help where our strengths lack. And also, we also rely on the expertise of guest practitioners who do come in and also give further insight to our artistic leaders to further develop their practice, and in doing so enable our members to also grow in their artistic skills. Here are just some snippets of some artistic sessions we had this coming last year. The next point then goes on to effective relationships. As also Adrian mentioned, we do go back to working with several collaborators who we feel very comfortable with and who have understood our vision and who have also challenged also maybe our vision at the end of the day in order to enable us to grow and flourish as an organization. But those relationships are very important. I think to have a successful collaborative project, there needs to be trust within that relationship. And here are just some examples of the various artistic practitioners we have very good relationships with. Next point reflects upon, again, the shared vision. Once our collaborators do share our vision, there is room for discussion, room for planning, room for new ideas to be put forward, and also implementing those artistic projects. And we have done so with Spazio Creative this year. We worked on an artistic project which involved integrated workshops with school students for World Disability Day. We also worked with new collaborators, and that is always challenging. It is exciting also at the same time, and one tends to learn how these collaborations will grow eventually. And also these new collaborations enabled us to also put further awareness what we are all about. Our performers' artistic work is being shared more with the general audience. Sorry. And the last point. Sorry, I'm rushing through this. I know you gave me 5 minutes. Is artistic collaborations. Then again, I think it is very important to develop the work and the artistry of our performers, and this happens when we also work with different directors for different projects. For example, this was a performance piece which we took abroad in Expressions Festival in Leeds, which also builds a relationship. We are now building relationships abroad within various festivals.
How does this particular point help? Because Eckhard mentioned that before, like the international dimension, but how does this effectively help in your case, having international partners, going abroad?
Well, I think initially our work was very much presented abroad, and I think that was what brought the members of Opening Doors together. It was they loved traveling and they loved performing abroad. They loved partnering up and meeting new people. So that is that is how the organization grew initially. We then wanted to focus more on the local. On local festivals and putting, awareness out there about our work, and hopefully working with other artistic collaborators. But usually, as Eckhard mentioned, there is a recommendation. So someone knows someone, and they do recommend us that we get in touch, for example.
Yes.
So yes. These are just examples of the different artistic collaborations we had locally. With Alison White, for example, our dancers had the opportunity to perform in an integrated piece last December. And also we worked with Teatru Malta, and this is very exciting because now this is what we want to push forward as well. Our artists are working on independent projects, so they're not just working within Opening Doors, but they are taking on board new projects outside of Opening Doors, and we want to kind of push that more, hoping that there is more inclusivity within the artistic local scene. And yes, this is another example where we have Maria working with Costas, who is an independent dance artist, and they worked on a dance film, which was lovely to see. I would like to see more of these films. And yes, I mean, just to sum it up, I think these different points all kind of add up together. But I think without these collaborations, Opening Doors wouldn't be where it stands today. It has grown from strength to strength, and hopefully, the more we collaborate with our previous collaborators, to which we have a good relationship with, we will just kind of keep on going forward from there.
Thank you, Ilona. I'm actually curious about a particular point which was mentioned both in Dorian's presentation and in your presentation, sustaining these relationships, because obviously you start collaborating, but then over the years, as we said before, there could be some changes or particular situations, such as this year. You know, so what happens then? What would you kind of recommend or would you share in terms of sustaining healthy long-term relationships?
Okay. Well, in our case, we have very much an open communication with all our collaborators. And for example, with the changes that COVID brought about, we shifted all our plans. We had to have an annual performance, which didn't take place with Teatru Salesjan, but things shifted online and we pursued other possibilities. We worked very much on projects to be broadcasted on air, visually, through film. Sorry. So yes, I mean, and these came about, these recommendations also came from our collaborators. So I think maintaining that open communication is key in our case.
Yeah, I would say that exactly, but also they need to feel that they're part of the organization as well, and not being used, to put it bluntly.
This is a very interesting point. Used. Can you explain a bit more what you mean?
Yes, of course. It goes back to choosing someone and building a relationship, because there might be people who want to collaborate because, I don't know, they like your work and want an experiment and see what happens. There are people who are really interested and want to form part and want to continue growing with you. And those are the people that, at the end of the day, work with us. Like there's Patsy, for example. She does most of our outreach work now for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years. There's always time for her. There's always time for her in the studio. It's not because it's not a Moveo project. In that case, she gets less time, or she has the full facilities of the company, as she forms part of the company organization. So then they feel that they own the work, they have a responsibility. So I think that's one of the main keys to keep a partner and keep a relationship, is that they feel that they form part in the organization.
Exactly. And actually, I'd like to bring in Adrian a little bit here into the conversation, because I think this being kind of used, or a one-way relationship with the funder, is very much how at least the funder is looked at sometimes. You know, it's just like this piggy bank which keeps giving money. But I think there's also kind of this drive to for collaborations to take place, for something else to take place, not just giving funds, but creating some kind of dialogue.
Well, in the case of from the funder's perspective, and it's not just Arts Council, it could be even a sponsor or a foundation. I would say that even though in practical terms the collaboration in that sense is, from that sense, is purely financial, there's a reason why, there would be a reason why a funder chooses, selects a specific organization to collaborate with or to fund. And that is the funder would have its own objectives. It would have its own strategy. It would have its own aims, and it would see that organization as a potential partner in achieving those objectives. So, then of course it varies in the extent to which the funders involve the organization in achieving those aims. However, in principle, I would say then that those funds do represent are an indicator in themselves that the funder would like to collaborate in some way or another with the organization. And the organization, from its own perspective, of course, would do well in keeping contact with the funder and keeping the funder happy in a way, without letting the funder be too invasive. There's a fine line, of course. Yes. There's a fine line in there. And but on the other hand, it would do well in seeing the potential that there can be, even some of which the funder would not be even aware of. So keeping a good relationship, keeping a good rapport with the funder, even if at that immediate moment it's not materializing much more than just a simple transaction, but being on the lookout in expanding the relationship beyond that transaction, so to speak, I would say is a beneficial mind state to be in as a collaborating organization.
Exactly. Actually, I'd like to bring Francesca, and I know that you will be talking about Teatru Salesjan in a few minutes, but what do you look for? Because obviously in this case, again, it could very well be a transaction. I need the space, I come to the space, I use the space, and that's it, you know. But I think there could be potentially value added to that transaction. Let's put it that way.
In fact, it's going to be one of the points in the presentation.
Sorry, I didn't want to anticipate that.
But yes, we don't believe that. You know, we have different streams of funding, but we do not believe that it's just funding. It's not someone doesn't just give you money to give them a service. Someone invests in your ideas, in your expertise, maybe in some areas, because they believe in you. And we mentioned a lot of relationships that work, relationships that don't, and Eckhard mentioned it at the beginning. It's about trust. And I think with funders especially, they really need to feel that they trust you. Because, I mean, ultimately, they're giving, it might be a substantial amount of money, but they're giving you everything you need to do your project, and they only do it because they really believe in what you're doing.
Exactly. And also, possibly, it's not just approaching funders, or let's take the venue here as an example, just for funds, I am bringing something to the table, you are bringing something else. Possibly, I mean, we've been hinting at this in the different presentations, but I think that's kind of important as well for you as a...
It's very important because, in fact, when we actually started putting the season together, we would get a lot of requests, for example, for
asking us about the costs of hiring, with no mention of, the production that they're wanting to put up, without no mention of why they're putting up that specific production. So immediately realized that what people were requesting of Teatru Salesjan was a venue and not a collaboration. And we wanted to change that. So that's one of the first things that we did. We started meeting people. We started really, seeing how we can be of support to bringing their vision to life. But ultimately, their vision would need to be something that we agree with, that is within our ethos, because then, maybe sometimes with relationships, Dorian mentioned relationships that sometimes don't work. Sometimes it's just the right thing to do, to tell a producer, listen, this piece would not work in this theater, but listen, there's another 3 theaters that I know that would love this particular piece because it's perfect for their stage. So there's no, you shouldn't just, go for it just to do something. It's really finding the partner that you can work with, that production that can work on your stage.
Exactly. I would like to see whether Eckhard, because we mentioned you many times, I'd like to see whether you have any reactions to what is being said. Well, we're agreeing with you, so.
Yeah, I think it was very nice to hear that sort of sense of agreement and the question of sort of trust coming up quite a bit. I think one concept I want to bring in as well is the sort of concept of generosity, because it's not just trust and sort of knowing something, it's kind of a generosity of spirit. I think it's really important in a collaboration, and constantly being aware that you're aiming for a collective better outcome, and so it's balancing the sort of the benefit that you get out of the collaboration to the bigger benefit to the collective, and I think that's helped me in my negotiations in collaborations, which sometimes can be tricky, can be difficult, but really helped me get through this, to kind of always go back to what was the initial question that we collectively wanted to address, and by working together, will we make it better? Where do I have to give in and make compromises? And where do I need to stay really, really close and true to my specific circumstances? And I think that's a very subtle process which has to gradually evolve.
Yeah, in a sense, I think the COVID situation has, in a way, highlighted this aspect of support, of being generous, more ready to be generous in a weird way. I think we stopped and reflected on that as well. I don't know if you have experienced this level of support from collaborators, or how you went about that in this very particular time.
I think you're right there. The COVID-19 crisis is very, very difficult, and the cultural sector is one of the hardest hit one, and some of the long-term effects are yet to come. But on the positive side, what I have experienced is a really reaching out to each others and to colleagues, and just to kind of check in how people are doing, and comparing notes and keeping dialogue open. I've noticed in the UK, for instance, particularly in the dance sector that I'm very connected to, there's a whole number of national networks that have emerged on Zoom or through Microsoft Teams and other ways, where conversations are now happening that are more about how we address the current situation, how we move forward, what are the most important questions we need to address, rather than being governed by too much territorialism or competition. So that's actually something I have experienced as quite a positive in this very difficult period.
That's very true. I mean, we all managed to keep in touch with a number of different networks, attended a number of meetings on Zoom. We're just commenting about this before. But in a way, you know, it helped. It helped us to, as Eckhard is saying, to keep in touch, to stay there and to keep up with what is happening. You know, how was your experience, Dorian? No comment about the Zoom meetings.
No, I think, to be honest, it was a good break in a way as well, as you said. You get time to reflect and see the organization from the outside. Give it time, because a lot of time we don't have time to do things or even to think, because everything happens so fast, and you're always expected to produce like high-class work all the time, like you're not a human being. So that was good in that sense. And with all these meetings of Zoom, yes, there were times where you hear the word COVID 700 million times and you're like, I don't want to hear it again. But having said that, I met a lot of people that I didn't know they were in the arts in Malta. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to connecting with people, something like that, because people had time, you know, if there was a meeting at 10, you're not in the studio. You can go to the meeting, you know. So a lot of people managed to meet in that sense. Also, it created kind of a platform when, for example, we work with Teatru Manuel, which is our, I would say, one of the big partners we have. We go to every meeting, into Valletta, into the office, 3 hours. Yeah. You know, when now people find it easy to just connect on Zoom, and the meeting that lasts 45 minutes just lasted 45 minutes.
This is also true for the international collaborators, because we could simply switch on Zoom or whatever and speak to our collaborators, and it was quite relatively easy at that point. So.
Yes, when it comes then to training, it was a different story.
I can imagine.
It was very limited then.
The artistic side then was a little bit, yes. Okay, so I'd like to move on to Francesca. We did anticipate some of the points which you are going to mention. Francesca Zammit is from Teatru Salesjan, and you will be providing us kind of another perspective and another take on collaborations, this time round from a more production side rather than artistic. Francesca?
Yes, so thank you for the invite. So as Elaine mentioned, I'm Francesca from Teatru Salesjan, and I actually wanted to start by saying that I started working with the organization through a collaboration between Teatru Salesjan and Opening Doors, because they both needed an administrator. They couldn't afford one separately, so they brought one joint, and I was she.
Here you are.
And then I stayed, and they didn't let me go, so
that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
So there have been a lot of valid points, and I feel that this presentation will be a bit of a repetition of what was mentioned already, because you mentioned some very valid points. But I will be focusing more on, as a theatre, as an organization, how we choose our collaborators. So, people. The Teatru Salesjan has been around for 112 years. So a theatre that lasts that long doesn't last, you know, because of one particular performance or one particular partner, but it lasts because of people. Generations and generations of people have given their time, their expertise, their energy, their family. I mean, people have met, got married, raised their kids on stage. This is really a theatre where everything is about the people. Everything is about the people that make it. And I wanted to say that at Teatru Salesjan, people are not just an acquaintance, a collaborator, someone who comes in for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and then leaves and, you kind of see them in the street and awkwardly wave. People who walk in our doors feel a sense of belonging that stays with them. I mean, there are people who are in their 50s now and they used to come to the Domus Cinema and they still feel that, Teatru Salesjan is their Domus Cinema and it's where they it's where they went on their first date. They have all these fond memories of the place. And I wanted to point out that, we all mentioned that collaborations are so important and communication is so important, but all or most of this is unseen work. It's not things that you plan on a daily journey that I'm going to call this person and check up on them. It's unseen work, but it makes the process and the project so much easier. Because then when it comes to communicating, as Dorian said, you don't have to start at the beginning. You already have a language that you both can understand. So as a theatre, we are approached and we approach people for work. And I'm going to start off by kind of talking about when we're approached. So an artist or a producer will want to put up a production and they will usually send us an email or give us a call or drop by and say hello and present themselves. As I mentioned before, we had a bit of at the beginning when I started working, we had a bit of this situation where people would ask so many questions about the cost and not even mention the quality or the production that they're doing or why they're doing. So what we did to combat that, we made a proposal form. Now I know that artists do not particularly like filling forms. It's a taxing job. None of us like it. But it is essential. Because not only does it mean that when we meet, then our meeting is much better laid out, that we already make connections, we already know who we're going to bring in, what we're going to say, what problems maybe or questions we have. But it also helps the artist or the producer to think in advance and to really make sure that they've considered everything. So in a way, just the proposal is already starting a collaboration because it is really starting the dialogue. And I'm just going to flip through it. It's not very long. It might seem a bit long on here, but it's quite short, I promise. So, just a point to mention on the proposal. When we do get a proposal submitted, we really do take the time. We really, we answer calls, we call people in for meetings. We really do give 150% because it might be that we get approached by a lot of people we don't know or we've never experienced, people who are not recommended to us, but that doesn't mean that we don't give them a chance. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We bring them in anyway and we have a discussion with them and then we establish, whether this could potentially move on to something else or whether it's something that we need to put on the back burner for now and then we'll get back to it later. When we do produce work or we approach particular entities to work, it is because we have the either through recommendation, as we mentioned, or we've seen something or we've heard something. And it's because we feel that there is a need for the work that is being done. So just to mention, last year we started our Nurture Culture program, which is very fast and is going to continue to grow. But basically, we brought in the existing Sally Sounds and the Roaring Voices, who will be having their auditions soon. We strengthened them, and we brought in, we added other strands. We also worked with MCAS, University of Malta. We work with Opening Doors regularly, Step Up for Parkinson's. So a lot of, we really do work a lot with other entities. Relationships, as we mentioned, are very, very important. It's very important when we communicate not to have mixed messages, to really listen and appreciate where that person is coming from. To be open to criticism, so we do give out a survey at the end of every production to make sure that we're learning from each experience and building. And, as Dorian mentioned, no relationship is perfect, and it's better to just do your homework in advance, recognize what can work, and when it can't work, you need to let it go.
You need to test it.
You need to test it, but then you just need to let it go. And this is just a snippet of the people we worked with over just the past year.
Wow.
So this is a theatre with one employee, but this is a theatre that could not possibly run without people. And they couldn't fit. I was trying to make the font smaller and smaller and smaller, but they just couldn't fit. But this is why a community theatre is so important, and this is why I absolutely love my job, because it is all about the people. And that's my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Francesca. Before we actually move on to some comments, I would like to bring in our final speaker for today into this conversation, Simon Sharkey. Simon was one of the founding directors of the National Theatre of Scotland, a theatre without walls. Over 15 years with the National Theatre of Scotland, Simon pioneered a programme of participatory and community arts across Scotland and the rest of the world. Since leaving NTS in 2018, he formed the necessary space, which he calls a theatre of opportunity. Simon, hello.
Hello, hello, and thank you so
you.
much for the opportunity to talk to you. I know it's beautiful sunshine over there. It's like 16 degrees here and pouring of rain, so it's good, even if it's in a virtual sense.
The situation is very, very different here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for inviting me in here. I'd like to talk a wee bit here. I have a slideshow that I've sent you.
Yes.
And it can run. I called my new company The Necessary Space because the world has changed dramatically. And even more so now with COVID-19, and we need necessary spaces to be able to collaborate in. We don't create anything without any collaboration. So that's why I called it The Necessary Space. And every piece of work that I make is in collaboration with someone. I'm going to show you some examples. So the next slide, if you just let that roll, I'll talk to the slides.
Okay, we'll do that, Simon. We'll just let it go. Okay.
Just let it roll. It's on timers in any case. So every collaboration's a journey. It starts with a call to adventure and an opportunity to be able to get to know each other and know the why of the journey. The order of the decisions that you're making are really important. The why, the how, and the what. The why should we collaborate? Is it to affect social change? Is it to make beautiful art or theatre? Is it to generate equality and diversity? What are the things? Why do we want to do it? And if that's at the very beginning of that journey and the sense of why you're collaborating, then everything will lead from that. You then move to the how. How are we going to do it? And what can I bring to the table? What are my aesthetics? What are my experiences? What are my processes? And you need to find a paradigm, a space to be able to share them and be open to sharing them, be open to learning. That's really crucial. So the how is, how are we going to take this journey? What are the tools that we're going to have in taking this journey? What expertise do you have and experience do you have? And how are we going to bring these into the room and into this relationship as we move from our ordinary world into an extraordinary world of creation? And then we come to the what. The what is usually we're going to make a piece of theatre, or we're going to make an installation or a piece of art or a soundscape or whatever. And that will have been informed by the why and the how. And if you're open, the what will present itself in new forms and in new functions and new forums and seek out new audiences. Because the biggest collaboration that you have as an artistic process is the collaboration with your audience. You can't create something just for your organization or just to have that relationship with someone else or to save money or to target specific funding. You have got to have your audience as collaborators in that process. So you've got to understand what it is that you are aiming to engage your audience in a dialogue. How do you invite them into that necessary space for that dialogue? And if we show some more of these slides, I'll give you some examples of ways that had been achieved. Skip to the next one, because that's a quote about the fierce urgency of now, because the fierce urgency of now is upon us. I worked for the National Theatre of Scotland. I was one of the architects of that company, which we called a theatre without walls. We couldn't do anything without collaboration. We constituted it in such a way that we would reach out and collaborate beyond the theatre sector as well. Next slide. And the next one. So we went into communities and created theatre in high-rise flats. Next slide. In abandoned buildings and hotels where people had a sense of place. We were finding audiences that wouldn't necessarily come to theatres. Next. And this one is on a ship, a ferry that moved between islands, because the audience of the theatre never reached the islands as effectively. So we found ways to be able to collaborate with shipping companies. Next. With factories. Next. With shops. People would visit the shops. This was a shop that had a special significance to that community, and we collaborated with the owners of that shop in order to bring pieces of theatre into it. What's the next one? We did it in fields. Next. In places of heritage. Next. And in football stadiums. This, we had to collaborate with the football ground, the groundsmen, the advertisers, the referees, because they determined when we were able to have access to this audience. There was an audience of 4,000 in that stadium there. Next. In the subways and the tubes in Glasgow, the negotiations between the authorities, the people, the rail track people, the risk assessments and everything that were involved in that were really quite complicated. And if you just press through all of the slides now, because I know I'm running out of time, it gives you a sense of the type of theatre that can be achieved when you open the boundaries to collaboration, not just within the theatre sector. That one was a car that we knitted and drove around an archipelago of islands and performed pieces of theatre inside the car. Keep going. Yeah, that's part of the same project. Next. This one was the whole city of Aberdeen. We took over 60 buildings and turned the city into a gallery. The audience wandered around the city witnessing narratives in the windows of their city. So we completely changed the landscape of their city. And in their buildings as well, we produced large-scale site-specific work. The collaboration there, the collaborations that we have in these circumstances are not limited to the ideas or aesthetics of theatre or art making. They open up all the boundaries and all the possibilities and all the opportunities that you have when you're in a dialogue and a collaboration and a relationship with outside of the theatre sector. What we bring to that is the expertise of how will we going to take and tell a story? How will we take this this journey? And what is it that we can make together? But as I said at the beginning, going straight back to the why is the reason. Why we got groups of young men out in the streets of Glasgow and 10 different cities across the UK was to commemorate the deaths of tens of thousands of young men in the First World War. That was a UK-wide initiative, so there was collaboration between 10 different theatres and several different communities that these theatres serve. And at the heart of it all is why. Why are we doing it? And why now? Because the fierce urgency of now is upon us. The the way the world has changed, it was changing in any case. So COVID-19 has just accelerated everything. We were moving towards, and we're still living within a lot of different types of pandemic, mental health, equality, the environment. We are rapidly moving towards a completely new paradigm, and the way to deal with that is through collaboration. And some very practical issues and collaboration are about knowing your boundaries, knowing the people that you're collaborating with, be open to learning, be open to see it as a journey, because we can plan, we can map a journey, but we will not know what is going to happen on that journey. I'll stop there because I'll leave some room for questioning. The slides are talking about international collaboration. I've not quite had the time to be able to talk about that, but happy to address that in any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Simon, for that. Actually, time is unfortunately running out, but I'd like to ask one last question, because as you said, like this is, there's a very obvious importance of collaboration, and it extends your work, and you can do other things which you haven't, maybe are not doing, or didn't quite imagine you will be doing. But how do you actually, particularly in relation to your experience with the National Theatre of Scotland, how did you go about explaining your mission? Because as you said, there was two worlds or more worlds actually interacting and creating projects. But how do you go about explaining yourself, what you do, and collaborating then with the different sectors?
It's tricky, but by listening, that's a huge part of any collaboration, is to understand your audience. And whether your audience is an actual paying audience, or whether your audience is a school or a local authority or a whole region or a country. And what National Theatre of Scotland was doing was responding to an opportunity that was and a need and a demand for a voice for Scotland to reflect on itself and connect internationally. So listening is really, really crucial in any relationship and in any collaboration. And opening that dialogue, you find the words and you find the purpose behind what the collaboration is. And you mustn't be afraid to say, this is not right, and walk away to say, oh, okay, you're looking for something to be achieved. We are looking in a different direction from that. So at this time, it's perhaps not the best thing for us to collaborate. But the idea of a national company or a necessary space is about listening and responding and being open.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon, for that. Obviously, I'm very aware that we only touched on certain points which are important to bring forward, to move forward an organization, to collaborate, to seek new partners. There's much more to be said, but this gave us a very interesting overview of how we could possibly go about it, how we could look for partners, keep our partners. But now that's your job, Stephanie. Stephanie will now give us a quick roundup of what we've been discussing during this session.
Thank you, Elaine. And thanks again for a very interesting discussion this week. As you know, today's session was titled Teaming Up, Seeking the Right Partners and Engaging in Ideal Collaboration. So I'll start off with a general overview of some of the main elements we touched upon in today's session. We spoke about why we want to collaborate and how that is an important question to start off with, how we can contribute towards a collaboration and which tools and expertise we can bring in,
and as well as the why we want to collaborate and why that is relevant in the now. We spoke about ideas as the basis of collaborations when it comes to arts organizations particularly, and how a diverse range of ideas can enable better creative projects. We spoke about how collaborations can be both artistic or creative as well as institutional, and their different motivations in this regard, which we'll go into soon. We spoke about finding elements that unite collaborators, and that usually starts with what is very important, a shared vision, shared problems, or a shared value, and the need to address key common questions. We spoke about perceived benefits, which lead to different forms of collaborations and different models of collaboration, which determine the why and the how, which we already mentioned. And then we spoke a bit as well about the success of collaboration depending on the input provided by the different collaborators in a project. So the motivations behind collaborations, we said that these could be artistic, financial, or structural, but also motivations forming as part of a tradition of sorts. So some of the motivations come from a need to generate new ideas and exchange knowledge, to deliver a project with increased results for both artists and audiences, to increase international exposure, to share knowledge and learning that takes the organization forward and into the future, and sometimes also to gain funding and to enable projects to happen. In terms of what makes a collaboration effective, we spoke about effective relationships that are very importantly built on trust, effective communication and the need to understand each other's language, both when collaborators are coming from different worlds, but also when roles, visions, and approaches are very similar and actually cross over. So not just the physical language, but also the operational one, the importance of keeping dialogue open throughout, and an example as well was made with reference to the pandemic, COVID, and how this enabled increased conversations to happen and to address challenges and ways of going forward, which was a very positive element of the pandemic. We spoke about the need to listen and to be open, to appreciate why you are being approached as a collaborator or why you are approaching somebody else. We spoke about growth, development, and expansion as another motivation of a collaboration. So the need to enable capacity building, the development of skills that this can bring, and the assistance and expanded number of resources that can be made available through collaborations. Another motivation is the knowledge sharing and shared resources element of the process, the shared vision, which we've already made reference to, the generosity of spirit that is required, so constantly being aware that you're aiming for a collective better outcome, and going back to the initial question that you wanted to address together with your collaborators in the first place. And then the autonomy for decision making was also brought up, especially in local contexts, so finding a balance to address the collective and individual needs of each collaborator involved in a process. And then in terms of challenges of collaborations, we touched upon quite a few. The unequal success that can sometimes happen in a collaboration and the unequal success between the different parties. The communication and understanding each other's language, which can prove to be quite challenging in various contexts. One example was, for instance, how culture is marketed in very different ways across cities, and thus partners collaborating on a specific cultural project need to find their own specific ways of doing that. So the need to allow and enable that process to happen. And then the challenges with transactions. So finding the value in simple and straightforward transactions and the need for investments and expertise in some areas to enable better and more effective collaborations. Thank you, Stephanie, for that brilliant summary of what we said during the session. I would like to thank Arts Council Malta, Marianne Kauki, Adrian, and all the team, our guests and speakers from Moveo, Teatru Salesjan, and Opening Doors. I would like to thank you for joining us and for following this session today. Our next session will focus on exploring the digital and the alternative. We hope you can join us next week. Next session is going to happen on Monday, this time round, 27 July at 6:30 on Arts Council Malta's Facebook page. Thank you and good night.